Happy New Year, everyone. Happy 2019. Before we get started on today's episode, I just want to wish everyone a Happy New Year all over the globe and make sure that we are all striving to make 2019 even better than 2018 might have been. 2018 for me had definitely ups and downs. Ultimately, it was a good year, a promising year, a year that I got to move forward in many aspects of my life and manifest the perfect ways and the perfect people and the perfect situations to continue my journey and my path and to allow myself to expand into new levels. And I want nothing but the same for all of you. And obviously, I do this show because I want to help and contribute and help everyone get out of any stuck, victimized position or box that you think you're in. I want to empower you to know that you can change your life. And of course, that's the reason why I've got all the things that I do offer, because I've got a large number of you as a community, and I do appreciate your patronage and that you're finding value in the information that I'm putting out there. And the next step and the next level is to do something about it. Hearing it definitely can help, and I appreciate all the emails that I get. Keep them coming about the transformations you've experienced just by listening to the show. I mean, that in itself is awesome. If you're ready to go to the next level, I always have all kinds of things that you can take advantage of in order to help you get to that next level. So today is January 1st. We are 9 days away from releasing What Weighs You Down. So I wouldn't be fair of me not to announce it for the very last time. One of the fun things about it is that actually this time I'm going to be cooking a lot more. And I provided food, both vegan and paleo and keto and grass-fed organic and wild organic foods for everybody. And I do have companies that contribute, but I'm actually going to be doing a lot of the cooking. And I'm actually kind of excited about it because I'll have time to do it ahead of time. So it'll all be made a day or two ahead of time, and it'll still be fresh. And you're going to get to taste all the cooking that I do on my easy gluten-free paleo show. And of course, again, some of it's going to be vegan. So if the event is just not an option because it's only 9 days away, we also have the virtual ticket. And again, it'll be the last time you can get the virtual ticket for the event. And I also have, I believe, 1 or 2 spaces left in our Manifestation Mastermind, which is starting this week. So if you are not being held accountable in some way, and I would say in some paid way, because honestly, if you don't have skin in the game, then it's not as important. And that's why most people join a gym for free or for $5 down or whatever cheap deals that they give you this time of the year. They know they can catch you because it's really inexpensive. The problem is most people don't stick to it. So the gyms profit because they get your money. And then they know, and they bet on you not coming. They bet on you coming for a little while, then giving up, or investing a little bit more in hiring a trainer or doing something like that. So if any of you are interested, you're going to have to reach out to me because the links are not public. They were only in emails and on my private Facebook page with the Manifestation Challenge. So again, there's probably 1 or 2 spots left in the Manifestation Mastermind. There are 2 payment plans. One is $97 a month. It's for 6 months. There are only 20 people in the group, and the other is $497 for all 6 months at one time. So if that's of interest to you, please let me know. And then the last thing I'm going to mention, it's a free webinar that I'm going to be doing called The 3 Biggest Weight Loss Myths and a Proven Plan to What Works for Your 2019 Goals and Beyond. This is going to be a live webinar that will be happening on January 24th at 11 a.m. Pacific Time, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. It'll be a little less than an hour. And you can register at jjflazanes.com/myths. That's MYTHS. And if you can't make it live, you can register and you'll get the replay. So again, that's jjflazanes.com/myths, MYTHS. And again, our topic is the 3 biggest weight loss myths and a proven plan to do what works for your 2019 goals and beyond. So I hope that you'll register for that webinar and we can get on a really good trajectory and momentum for 2019 when it comes to your health, because again, that is part of my goal here. So today's show, January 1st, I thought it would be appropriate to talk about detoxification in a new way. And we're going to talk about that love-hate relationship with technology, that even if you are addicted to technology, you have it. And if you don't really bother with technology, you have it. You're just on the opposite ends of the spectrum. And for those of you that are coming to Releasing What Weighs You Down, you're going to be doing a digital detox because you are not allowed to have your phones even powered on. And no one is bringing a laptop into the room except Josh. Josh handles all of my production and my websites and stuff. So Josh gets to have his laptop. But besides that, it's a digital detox. It is going within, and I'm going to recommend that even if you're not coming to the event, that you do the same thing at some point in time on your own or find another way to do a digital detox. So Dr. Heidi Forbes Ost is a behavioral scientist, a best-selling author of Digital Self-Mastery series, and executive producer of the Evolving Digital Self podcast. She combines 25 years of experience in social strategy consulting with her scholarly research in the human relationship with technology and her personal passion for well-being. She holds several advisory roles as an expert on digital well-being and ethics for new technologies to support the transition into the digital era without losing humanity in the process. Welcome to the show, Heidi.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
I really want to have this conversation with you because not only do I have a love-hate relationship with technology, mine is based on not just the how to do and the what to do and the why to do, but on the effects of doing, right? On the health effects of doing. And so I love the Digital Self-Mastery book. Thank you for my copy of it. I want to make sure everyone knows they can get a downloaded copy for it for themselves for free. If you go to 2balanceu.com, that's the number 2, balance, the letter U.com. And we're going to be talking about that love-hate relationship with technology and otherwise known as digital life balance, because definitely in today's day and age, there's a huge imbalance. And so I want to start with how you even got here. I know that you're a scientist, but how did you get here to, what's your relationship with technology that got you to write this book?
Well, part of the motivation for my book was to try to really bring things to sort of the human level outside of the science space, because a lot of my research was driven by my consulting career for many years before my science-based side of working with teaching technology. And I just saw this constant, the more technology that we brought on, we were creating all of these new behaviors and stresses. And it was becoming kind of a toxic situation. And so when coming back out, I really wanted to create something that helped people understand about the human relationship with technology and also how it really impacts the way they move in the world, the way they interact with other people, the way they grow their business. And if you don't manage that relationship better, then it can really be harmful for you. But it also is something that can be solved. So that was really the driver for me behind working with Digital Life Balance. And, from a client side of working with individuals, and the other side was working with technology companies, helping them design technologies that enhance the human experience rather than becoming the human experience. So I work on both ends of it, but I just feel very strongly that both for myself, I struggle with it just as much because the technology is constantly changing. And so we're always having to integrate new tools and remember to remove old tools. And it can be really overwhelming and frustrating for all of us.
What I really appreciated about meeting you and having dinner with you back in September of last year at New Media Summit was for those of you that don't know, although I think my audience knows, I have a dumb phone. I have a flip phone. And I get made fun of all the time by everybody because I'm not up to date with technology. Now, mind you, I have an iPad, so I have the technology, and I use that iPad for all kinds of things. I even have Wi-Fi, or I have it. There's a plan, so when I'm out, I can use it for GPS. I can use it to search and browse. I can use it to text only people who have, Apple products. But what I loved about, I didn't even realize that in what you did in the moment when you saw my flip phone and you thought it was great. And I'm like, okay, good. Because normally on the health side for the electromagnetic frequency part, there's that side. But for someone who deals with technology, usually I think I would expect a little judgment or like, why aren't you up to date? Or, I didn't get any digital shaming or technology shaming for you. So I really appreciate that. And I wanted to really let that be known to everybody today, because while we're going to talk about technology, we're going to talk about it from all kinds of different positions. And I'm not against technology. I utilize it. Look, we're on a podcast. I'm using Zoom to be on the podcast. I'm going to use audio editing software. I'm going to be using Instagram to share the post. I'm going to be using Twitter to tweet out the post. I use Facebook all the time. Tonight I'm on a Facebook Live. There's definitely things to be embraced. But again, looking at that and looking at the balance aspect of that. And so for people like me, for people like you, would you not agree that, and this is like an evolution, expansion, law of attraction mindset that I'm going to use here as we go into this, as we look at the speed of life, right? The speed of life continues to get faster and faster. So children being born now are more up to speed with now than, let's say, someone who was born 30 or 40 years ago. Like, we have all evolved into this new era of, now that doesn't mean that that's why, your 4-year-old can figure out technology before you can, because they're up to speed when they come in, versus we came in at a lower frequency and now we're sometimes having a hard time with that. So that's my perspective, what I see and what I know from a vibrational standpoint. How do you help people who are older to learn or to balance technology in their business and in their life?
Well, I think there's two different aspects to that I think it's really important to recognize. And one is that they don't necessarily have to learn it all. It's more a question of finding ultimately understanding what they're trying to achieve and what their needs are, and then matching them with the tools that are going to really support them in that, and the tools that they're going to be comfortable with. And so, for example, one of the programs and projects that I do with organizations is actually look at how do we harness the elders' knowledge, instead of having them sort of new technologies come in and they say, I'm not going to learn this. I guess it's time for me to retire. Instead, figure out ways that we can harness that knowledge by maybe setting up mentoring with someone that really is comfortable with the technology that can help extract and share what they have. Because maybe the younger generation knows the technology really well, but they may not have the years of experience and knowledge about the greater system and how the world works. And they may not have actually developmentally been able to get to a stage where they understand sort of regenerative behavior where they're what they do impacts others. So they're still focused on the self and the ego. So there's a lot of different pieces there, both with how do we use the technologies and what technologies to use. But we're fortunate that we're in a state where a lot of the new technologies are coming in that are more intuitive in how we interact with them, rather than having to adjust our entire behaviors. So, for example, like the iPad that you use, it's very intuitive. A 2-year-old can do it, or a senior citizen who's never seen one of these things before. They naturally go in and turn a page, and to them, it's actually easier than a computer. So I think it's more a question of identifying what those needs are and figuring out the tools that are optimal for that individual that they're going to really thrive with, and maybe matching them with others that can do what they're not comfortable doing. And we do that in our work as well when we delegate. For example, if you're not particularly comfortable with web design, you might hire someone else to do that piece, because that's not necessarily your core business, but you still need to have a presence on the web. So it's really no different than that. It's more just looking at how do we balance those systems from a bigger perspective, but also from the individual perspective.
Okay, so then the question becomes, are you helping people determine that? Because how else would somebody know what's available to them and what the better choices are when I'm, let's just say, someone who's older and technology does not fit my brain? I think knowing yourself is really important. I talk about this on the show and in different places all the time. Knowing what you're good at, knowing what you can handle, and also knowing what you can't. Like I'm pretty smart, and I've got a lot of skills and a lot of different areas of understanding. But when I sit down in front of a computer with someone who's coding, my brain gets zapped instantly and I am dead brain for the rest of the day. Like I cannot watch someone code because it's like language I can't wrap my head around. Now, I'm sure if someone explains it to me enough, possibly. Same thing with accounting. I had a bookkeeper over here the other day, a new bookkeeper of mine. And as I'm watching her and as she's explaining it, she's driving this bus like it's, like she's with her eyes closed, because I have the accountant version of QuickBooks, which is the super up version. And of course she knows it very well and she's going really fast. And she's like, oh, she's just assuming because I'm smart, like that I can get it. And I'm like, look, I can't look at it right now. I'll learn it later. So how do you assess, or how does someone assess, or do you help assess where someone is utilizing technology, where the programs and the things and the tools they need, and the things that they don't need?
Yeah. So one of the things that I do, depending on sort of what their situation is. So say, for example, someone, I can give you a Gen X example where a lot of us have accumulated a lot of different technologies, and we may even have sort of a technology graveyard. And that graveyard may be a bunch of different phones or a bunch of different devices that we've picked up over the time and never gotten rid of them, or it may just be apps and software that we haven't removed from our systems, and they're weighing us down in different ways, whether it's taking up memory or processing power, or just the stress of having these things around. So part of what I do, if you're familiar, I'm sure you're very familiar with a typical a dietary elimination diet, where you go back to the absolute basic, where you have nothing more than the absolute basic that you need in order to get through a basic day. And then you slowly add things back in to determine which things cause a physiological and a stress response. Then you go through a period of sort of identifying which of those things are triggers and are unhealthy, and identifying whether they, after you go through sort of a self-assessment of sort of what am I trying to accomplish and what am I capable of identifying those things that need to be delegated or just eliminated. And usually by clearing out a lot of that, you can get to a place of, okay, well, maybe there's still a hole here of something that I need to fill in that I haven't learned yet, or I haven't found the right tool or the right person to accomplish in order to get to my ultimate goal. But like you said, a lot of it is self-awareness, and it's less about learning the tools and the technology itself.
For someone, though, that definitely thinks, like I've got people that I know who I'm helping with different things that say, I don't want to have to learn it. I'm not good at it. And there's twofold to that. There are definitely, for me, like I don't really need to learn coding, and I don't want to learn coding. However, I do want to learn QuickBooks, and I do want to learn it so that I know how to do it. Will I ever want to do it? Maybe not. But I want to learn it. And what I know about what's going on with me right now is I have too much on my plate to have any space to learn it. And so let's take the person who says, well, I don't want to learn it, or I think I'm too old. I don't get any of this stuff. At that point, and maybe they're right. Maybe some of the things they're choosing are too complicated for them. Are you someone who could help them, or who could help them determine and match the right next step for them when it comes to technology and their needs?
So part of that is, so for example, with your QuickBooks example, you've got a tool there that has incredible power to do all kinds of things in the accounting space. But like anybody who's running a business, you need to have a baseline understanding of your finances before you pass them on to somebody else, right? You need to understand sort of your basic profit and loss. You don't need to be an accountant. You don't need to be someone that handles those, but you do need to at least understand how much money do I have, how much is going out, and how much is coming in, right? So if your personal preference is to be able to, beyond just reading the reports that you receive from your accountant, then yes, you are going to have to challenge yourself to learn some of those basic pieces. But part of that is also identifying a good partner that can help communicate that. So one of the things you said there that stood out to me was that when she talks to you about what she's doing, or when you're watching what she's doing, it's like another language, right? And this is a very classic situation when we're telling someone what we want on our website, or we're telling someone what we want to do. All of these different things, once you do delegate something, there's a miscommunication because you are speaking two different languages. So part of that is really getting the clarity in what you need, why you need it, and is it really important? And some of it is elimination. Again, it's going back to, do I really need to know this? Or is it just, that would be interesting? Because as one of my coaches actually had pointed out to me the other day, is that I'm addicted to chaos. And it's one of those things of like, I'm constantly taking on more and more things. And part of that is because because of the work that I do, people are constantly sending me new technologies to test. And I'm like, oh, isn't this cool? Isn't this fun? Sure, I can give you a review. I can do that. I can do this. But just because you can doesn't mean you should. So again, it's about the elimination and really keeping your focus. So sometimes it's that self-awareness and really being clear on what you're trying to accomplish so that you can make time for doing the things that you really need to do, and including getting downtime.
Right. I have definitely delegated things in order to get downtime. In fact, I have delegated Twitter for a lot of years because I'm not that mentality. I'm never going to have a conversation back and forth on a tweet necessarily because I don't have a smartphone, even though I can do it easily from my iPad. But years ago, I saw another, let's say, empowerment speaker, a motivational speaker, and he had a huge following. And when I went to his workshop and realized that I could do what he's doing better. I thought, I mean, not to be, whatever, it is what it is. But I sat there and thought, you have a certain niche. People have gravitated towards you because of your niche, but there's nothing that you're doing that I can't do. And I think I can do a lot of it more succinctly and to a broader audience. And so at that point, I realized that his major marketing tool was Twitter, but I hated Twitter. So I thought, well, I can't let that stop me. I'm going to hire somebody to delegate to. And that's what I've been doing when it comes to Twitter. So I'm definitely with you there on the delegating part when it comes to certain things that you think may or may not affect your business that you may or may not be interested in. I still have no desire to do Twitter. I've got someone else on board coming next to help do more stuff in that space because it is a space that I think is needed. I have a lot of millennials that listen to my show and people who will reach out to me and come to my events. So I don't want to negate them and force them to do the technologies that I like Facebook and Instagram. So I don't want to deny myself the space. So the question becomes, how does somebody determine? I do love the elimination diet analogy because yes, you remove, although for me, when I'm helping somebody through an elimination diet, I've gone in to assess what out of the top 5 most inflammatory foods are for them. I've asked which one do you crave the most? And I look at the diet and think, which one do I think based on their symptoms needs to be removed first? And maybe there's 1, maybe there's 2. I usually don't go more than 2. And that's just removing 2 of them. So I understand the analogy. You want people to remove everything and just put in the things that they need and then bring back things that they do need, which I think is a great way to reverse engineer that. But let's say somebody has all this stuff. They're not willing to let go of it and they need to wrap their head around or know, where do I find out if there's something better? I mean, the world of technology grows so quickly and how do we keep up with, not even keep up. I don't want to keep up. And that's not what you're telling people to do either. It's about getting specific. It's about choosing the right tools. But how does somebody really do that when they're not in the know about the tools that are available?
So, and that ultimately is a challenge. It really is. I mean, even for me, and I have a pretty good finger on the pulse, partially because I'm, often speaking at events where they're presenting a lot of the new things. But even in that time, as I see things that come and I'm like, this is going to be the greatest thing. And then 6 months later, it disappears. And sometimes you have these incredible new technologies that are answering all the questions that, we really feel that we need. And unfortunately, their business model is crappy, whether it's they haven't figured out how to distribute their product or whatever it is, they disappear. And that's after you've put all of your energy and time into learning this new thing. So I think it's, technology is really, it's tricky in that way. And there's no sort of magic bullet in terms of saying this will work for everyone. But I think what's really important is to find resources that match the way that you think, the way that you communicate, and your needs, and then use their recommendations. Because I work from sort of the premise that the anomaly is the norm, and there's no way that one particular solution is going to work for everyone. So, for example, for senior citizens who want to get involved in technology. And a lot of senior citizens are actually, they're one of the fastest growing populations in terms of starting new businesses, which is like, it's crazy. But part of it is they're living longer. They're no longer tied to a business or an organization that they've worked for their entire career, but they still need to keep going and they want to keep stimulating their brains. So AARP, the American Association of Retired Persons, actually has an incredible resource base for technologies, pretty much everything for health and management. And it's an incredible resource base. So there you might find technologies that you're going to be comfortable with based on what your previous experience with technologies are. I think, following people that you understand their language is really important. So part of that is also just, reading some of the articles that are within your field. Who's talking about, the technologies that are specific to your field. If you're looking for health-based technologies, that's a whole nother thing because you may have different challenges that other people don't have. The things that you want to track. So, for example, for women, they may want to use a health technology that actually tracks their menstrual cycles. Where for men, that's totally irrelevant, but it actually can have a huge impact on how you go about your day, and also when you might be planning big meetings or travel. So these are different things that we have to take into account when we're looking for the technologies. Look for resources that you feel comfortable with, and look in the way, you can search on YouTube even. Some of the, sometimes you find someone that has, a good following that talks about, a lot of people do reviews and, open box things on YouTube that can really show you sort of, what fits for different things. So again, it's finding, in today's market, really the best way to do it is find an influencer that you trust, that you like what they're doing. For people that follow you, you make recommendations on different products and services that you use. You're a trusted resource. Those things for your followers are probably more relevant than someone who follows, I don't know who would be a good example in total, on the total opposite end of the spectrum, but, finding someone that you really like the way that they talk, you understand what they're saying, and you hear, they have similar challenges or interests. So I think, that may not be the best answer for you, but that's the best answer I can give, because I hate to make specific recommendations about this is the best resource or that's the best resource, because it's really different for each individual. You can go and test and play with different things when you go to a place like Best Buy, and see if things physically work for you if you're talking about a product in that way. So and there it could be anything from your phone, like in your case, you like having the physical phone that just has the phone function. I think that's an amazing, like an awesome way to separate those two things out. And I've considered doing that myself sometimes because it's so easy to get sucked into using the smartphone, and you don't need it all the time. So, I think it really depends on the individual, what's the best tools for them. Finding people that you trust and asking them what they use is really important.
Well, thanks for that in terms of the validation about my little flip phone. I really, when I'm driving, don't want the distraction. Now, I will say that I do bring my iPad everywhere I go now, so it has really defeated the purpose. When I didn't have the cell data that I could, get the internet no matter where I was, before that it was better because I could only use my iPad at home and when I had Wi-Fi, but now I can use it anywhere I am, and it's a little distracting. However, I've trained myself for years to be prepared for this because I see too many people, besides, again, the health aspect of electromagnetic frequency and not wanting to have a battery on me all day long at that level. It's also, like we talked about in the beginning of the show, balance. So let's talk about balance. Let's talk about the idea of what that means, and from your perspective, what your recommendations may be. I know for me, technology has become something that I can identify as an addiction to people. We have a lot of addictions. People don't think of technology as an addiction. Some might. But an addiction really is anything that keeps you spinning in a circle and keeps you not listening to what's going on inside of you, from your thoughts to your emotions, and to actually experiencing things and being present in your body. And technology definitely is a huge addiction for lots of people because they're never off of it, and they are so dependent on, basically, they've set up that, put out the fire aspect of whatever's coming over, I need to respond to right now. So we give our power away all the time to these pieces of technology. So from your perspective and talking about digital life balance, do you have recommendations on either hours or devices or on usage?
Yeah, I mean, again, it really depends on the individual, but I think that there's some really basic habits that we can get into that are very healthy around, we hear a lot about don't use the phone in the bedroom and that kind of thing, but there's a lot to be said for that. And, for example, one of the companies that I'm working with right now, we're looking at ways to minimize the electromagnetic frequency in the device by using some other different tools. And that's something that, some people are very sensitive to it, others are not as sensitive to it, but in general, it's still there and it's going to impact your body and your brain when it's in proximity. The thing you're talking about, your iPad versus your phone, you're not putting your iPad to your ear like we do with our smartphone, or wearing a Bluetooth headset that also has the potential to have the EMF. So, you're actually doing a very healthy behavior, whether you're consciously thinking about, well, now you're saying, oh, I've got using the iPad too much, but at least it's still separated from you. So one of the things that I recommend to all of my clients is actually to have a docking station in their house where when you come in, you basically dock all of your devices, and you only go to them when you consciously need them, rather than carrying them around. So it's not in proximity of your body and constant, and in a constant flow, but it also gives you a break from that constant feeling of, oh, do I need to check things? So that's a really basic thing. I think the other thing that actually I've been really impressed with, I think Generation X is really, they're like the worst offenders in terms of sitting at the dining table and looking at their phones, and even worse, telling others not to, particularly their children. But the younger generation, particularly the Generation Z, they're really good about, putting their phones on. Everybody puts their phone on the table in a stack, and it's like, we're here, we're having dinner together. This is face-to-face time. And I think, taking in some of these behaviors are really, really great. The other is actually looking at which technologies you can use that will accomplish what you want to get done without having the full system attached to you. So for example, if you're going out for a run or, just going for a walk and you want to track that, you don't necessarily need to have your phone with you. You can have something that just tracks that communicates with your phone when you get back. That kind of thing is a way to sort of separate from the constant notification of, oh, you've got a phone call, oh, you got a new text. But it lets you focus on taking care of your body and getting the exercise that you need, but also tracking it so that you have a better awareness of what's happening with your body and your mind. So I think some of those really basic tools, the more we practice them, the better they are for us. And we're going to see the technologies get evolving more and more so that they'll be more minimalized. But I think, part of my work is really trying to make sure that when they're developing these devices, they do it with ethics behind how they use behavioral manipulation. So it's only behavioral manipulation for good, to encourage you to move more, to encourage you to meditate, rather than to encourage you to be on the phone for your entire day with your, to get technic where your head is, perched forward and it's causing all kinds of physiological problems. So it's a lot of these different things that I'm trying to work with now with the tech companies.
Do you cover that on your podcast?
I do now. I'm starting to have more where I'm talking to some of the tech companies. Initially, it was more, I do a little mix. Some I talk to people from different industries to talk about how technology is changing the way they work and live. But I'm increasing the amount of interviews with the tech companies themselves to see how we can make that shift around digital well-being and ethics.
I think that'd be a fascinating show because as I've been asking this whole time, like, who's a resource? And I know you're a resource, but if you're interviewing these tech companies and learning, people can download your show for free and start learning about some of the things that are coming up or that are out there. And I mean, obviously they should download your show anyway. So why don't you tell us, I know that you can get a free copy of your book at twobalanceyou.com. Tell everybody else, is that also at twobalanceyou.com, which is where they find your podcast?
Absolutely. So they can either, you can go, it's on iTunes and all of the other podcast apps. But if you go directly to the To Balance You /podcast, you'll also find the podcast. It's called Evolving Digital Self, or if you're accessing it from Alexa, you just say Digital Self Podcast.
Great. And I know that obviously I was on the show.
Yes.
Thank you. So I know you interview all kinds of people in this space. And now, as you said, you're getting more into reviewing some of the technology. I think that's going to be a really worthwhile thing for people and resource for people who are looking for more information so that they're not going to go try to find the newest, greatest thing. I mean, I hear about some things from other people in conferences, and there's just so many resources out there that it's very overwhelming at times. But definitely get Heidi's book, Digital Self-Mastery, Conquer Your Digital Habits to Boost Your Relationships and Business Growth. So whether you're an entrepreneur or not, we all have a relationship with technology. And I recommend you go to twobalanceyou.com, the number 2, balanceyou.com, and get a free download of her book. Heidi, any last thoughts you want to share with people about technology?
I think, again, I'll just repeat, it's so important to think about your relationship with technology like any other relationship. You want to make sure that that it's serving you and you're serving it. So there's one thing that we often don't think about, which is caring for our technology. And when we take good care of it, it will take good care of us. So and that's everything from making sure that it's fully charged, but also has a chance to reboot and, shut off completely, which allows us to shut off and reboot completely. So I think those are really important behaviors and habits that we can get into to improve our relationship with technology.
Excellent point. Didn't even think about that. I'm a shutter downer, and I know people who leave the stuff on all the time. So thank you for that. And with that, thank you again for being on the show today.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me.